an interesting question. And I think in some ways that the reason I could write Americanah in the way that I wrote it is because I'm a foreigner, really. I think of America as a place that, sort of my second home, a place I like very much. But it's not mine. And because of that, I haven't inherited the kind of, there's just a lot of weight that I think race brings. And also, until I came to the US, I didn't think of myself as black. I became black in America. In Nigeria, race is just not, we have many problems in Nigeria, but race is just not one of them. We don't identify on that basis because there's no need to, we don't have the history, and I think that if I came from maybe South Africa or even Kenya, maybe race would be more present for me, but in West Africa it just isn't. And when I came to the US to suddenly realize that I had not so much taken on an identity, but I had this new identity thrust on me. And the problem wasn't the identity, the problem was realizing that it came with so much baggage, that my professor was surprised that I wrote a good essay because clearly he didn't expect a black person to write the best essay in class. And I had come from Nigeria where I thought, I mean, surely this guy knows that Nigerians are incredibly smart, so why is it? So it was kind of this thing where I didn't get the memo that black meant bad. So I had to learn that memo in the US. And I think what it does is, there's just a sense in which I think it's easier to see certain things when you're not really deeply immersed in them. And I think it's also the case for people who come to Nigeria and there are things they say to me and I think, oh yes, that's actually true, because you're very much into something and you don't see it. And it also means that I don't have the kind of terror around the subject. There are people who are just terrified about, so people will say things like, I don't see race, right, which is such a strange thing. And so I'm thinking, I mean, surely, right? I mean, unless you need help with your eyes, but surely you can see that there's difference. And I think, you know, and I also think that, yeah, it's just I think really, I just feel there's a sense in which being not quite off the place makes it possible to think of that place. I'm hopelessly optimistic. I think that America keeps talking about the conversation about race, which by the way has never happened. I think it can. I think it can. I really do think so. But I think it will take people willing to be uncomfortable. And it seems to me that increasingly this is a society that is so invested in comfort. You can't make anybody uncomfortable, right? And there's no way that you can talk about something as difficult as race in America if you're not willing to be uncomfortable. And so I'm kind of hoping that these young people who are growing up now will save the world and will have that conversation, and all will be well. David's like, I don't think that's going to happen.
Your book takes place while President Obama was first running for office, and his speech on race is part of it. And you track his trajectory throughout the novel. How important was that it was set against the backdrop of not just his run, but also his presidency too?
It was. I remember, I wasn't in the US, but I wanted to try and capture that just incredible sense of euphoria that came with Obama being elected, and what it meant and what it said. And, you know, there's a part of me I remember as well that, and maybe the cynical part of me, because I remember sort of sitting back and thinking, why are we so happy? Why are we celebrating? You know, but anyway, yeah, I thought it was very important. I think the idea, for example, that a black man had become president and somehow he was also supposed to be Jesus Christ, who changed water into wine, right? I mean, there was a kind of this inflated expectation placed on his head, which I think is part of the reason that all of the talk about, oh, Obama is no longer popular, actually I think is a result of that, which is he hasn't changed water into wine, therefore he's failed. But then, whoever said that he was supposed to change water into wine? But anyway, so no, it was important. I wanted to try and capture that, just that sense of, and I think also because it's a novel that, in addition to many other things, is about race, I felt that Obama represented something, and I still think he does. And it doesn't mean, I really dislike that expression post-racial, I think it's nonsense. But I think that Obama was just a very small glimmer of hope for me. The idea that there were people who, despite the inheritance, the ugly, ugly inheritance, were willing to see that this was a man who could be president. And also, I just wanted to, I have such a crush on Michelle Obama, I had to throw my all that talk about, this is the real reason. I think she's the coolest woman in the world. I'm like, I have to write about Michelle.
All right, more questions?
This question is from your left. Hi there. My question is, if you've written the book, the historical book that you felt obligated to write, and the contemporary book that you wanted to write, what are you thinking about for what's next?
So the next book will be a sci-fi book about vampires.
I knew it. For a minute, I thought you were really going to answer that. Is that as far as you're going to go?
Yeah, I would tell her, but then I would have to kill her. She seems like a really nice person. So.
This question comes from one of the students behind you, to your right, behind Dave, actually.
Hi, Miss Adichie.
Hello.
So I hear that Americanah is going to be turned into a movie.
Yes.
Is that true?
Yes.
Well, I was wondering if you were concerned that the movie adaptation will lose Americanah's sort of messages and purposes that are throughout the book.
I think the audio
Did everyone understand that? The question is, if there's a movie adaptation of Americanah, are you worried about that it will lose some of the messages and the purposes that are in the book?
Well, I think films are just different from books. And I really wish that young people would be as excited about books as they are about films.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm biased, right? So it just means I need to bloody buy more books and read them. But, because I want to build a house in Nigeria. But I'm sure but films are so different from books. And I think that a film is never really the same thing as a book. What I hope will happen, though, is that somehow it retains the spirit of the book. That's the hope. It's never going to be exactly, but I think if it's done well, it can retain the spirit of the book. So we'll see. But I'm very excited that Lupita Nyong'o is going to be there.
Yes. Yes.
With Half of a Yellow Sun, you didn't participate. It was a friend of yours who directed it, but you didn't participate directly. Do you plan to stay sort of aside for Americanah?
Largely, yes. Yes, I'm not a good filmmaker. I think I would be a nuisance if and then I think I'd get upset if they didn't do things the way I wanted them to, And then I think most of my ideas would be terrible because I'm just not a film person. But if they do, I hope. I don't know what their plans are. They don't know either. But I think if they film in Nigeria, which is one thing that will be important to me, I'd love it if they film it's in Nigeria. That's what I would like. But I don't know if I'll visit the set. I'll see the film when it comes out. Oh, I might. What I might do is I might insist that they have proper accent coaches to get the Nigerian accents right. Otherwise, I don't know how many Africans are here, but there's that generic African accent.
Yes.
Foreigners put on when there is an African film. And everybody says, "When do you want to go here?" Well, and you're watching it and you're thinking, nobody on the continent sounds like that.
There was an American in Half of the Yellow Sun, Aniki Rose, and she was good.
She was perfect.
Right? She had her accent now. Yeah.
She was, Anika Rose is she's incredible. I just recommend that you go watch her and everything she's been in. I remember when she was
The
cast,
lady
I
that
thought,
play in
she's an
Yellow
American.
Sun.
Now, I love Americans, as you all know, but I just felt that it probably wasn't. And in some ways, it seems to me American actors, when they do African, it's just not very good.
Yeah, she was good.
But she was perfect.
Yeah.
So I should take back my prejudice, and you never know what will happen.
Just give us a chance, please. Over here.
This is from the front row. Hi, it's so nice to see you tonight.
Hi.
I'm the daughter of a Mexican engineer who had no idea that he would raise a history and literature feminist. And so when I told my father that I was coming here tonight, he said, that name sounds really
amazing talk by this woman, and she talked about feminism. And my dad is machine, and he and I, I have my own interests, and he has his interests, and we kind of negotiate using different words. But I was wondering what it feels like to be literally the voice of the definition of feminism to so many people. And, for y'all who might not know, Beyonce quoted her, which is what did that feel like to hear your voice in that song? And more broadly, as the definition.
Well, say hello to your father for me. Sounds like a really cool guy, and I feel like I know him. So, I don't think of myself as, I give this talk because my brother and my best friend made me give the talk, and I didn't know what else to talk about. And they said, well, you keep lecturing us about gender, so why don't you go talk about it? And because I'm known to give these really long, boring lectures to family members and friends about the inappropriateness of things related to gender. And so I did, and I really didn't have any expectations. And I really don't think of myself as the definition of anything, really. Right? But it's lovely to know that, it's lovely, for example, to hear your story, right? So to imagine your dad. It's just a really, I think the idea, and for Beyonce to have used it, I think, was also really lovely, because the one thing it did for me is that I have nephews and nieces. I'm an over-attached aunt. And my cool factor with my nephews so just that alone, I'm very happy about. So,
Center.
Hi, we read your book. I loved Americanah, and it struck me when talking about it at a book club meeting that all of a sudden it's the Odyssey structure exactly, and it was just the Odyssey. You start in the middle of things. It's a journey story. You've got the weaving of Penelope's weaving with your hair. It was amazing. You go to the underworld, to that horrible bedroom down in Chicago or wherever that was. It was, anyway, thank you. It's great.
thank you.
This question is from your left on stage.
I think my next talk is going to be Americanah as a metaphysical rewriting of the Odyssey.
Right.
This question is coming from your left on the stage.
Hello, I'm from Nepal, and being an international student, I would like to ask you something from behalf. And so you see, like, when we come from other countries, we have that fear, like, we have a particular goal, but we have the fear that people here are better than us. So what suggestion would you give? Like, how would you deal with that problem?
Are you sure? If I knew the answer to that, I would bottle it, sell it, and then build that house. You know what I would say, really, more seriously, is it's important to know. It sounds a bit obvious, but it's important to just sort of know who you are, right? And know that what matters is you have a goal, you know what you want to do, and focus on it. And also, I think it's important to remember that sometimes you think things are worse than they are. When I came to the US, I think when you're different, you don't want to be different. You don't want to sound different. And then you think everybody's looking at you funny, and you think they don't like you, or they're looking down on you. And most of the time, they're not. Right? So there's a lot that's actually about what you imagine. And I think the way that I dealt with that when I first came to the US, and it was disorienting for me, was simply to say that it gets better with time. It really does. But also just to say, I know why I'm here, I'm focused on, I'm here, I'm going to school, I really like that I'm going to school, or I go to the library, and I sort of focused on it. And here's the other thing, when you do well, they will realize that they're not better than you are. So if you focus on doing well, that's a good plan.
Back there?
Hi, Chimamanda. Kedu? Yeah, Chimamanda is my Igbo sister from Nigeria.
Yay!
Thank you. Yeah, I've followed almost all your books, from Purple Hibiscus to Americanah. And what is interesting to me is that you have a way of capturing our African stories, more or less as young people, and what teenagers go through in your books. So I was going to ask, when are you going to write a children's book?
A what?
A
Children's book.
Oh, a children's book. When am I going to write a children's book? I don't know. I don't know that it's a good idea, actually. I tried, I did start, but my vision is too dark. And I feel like children's books should be healthy. And then before I knew it, things were happening that were, so I just thought, no. Probably not a good idea. I wanted to write a book for my nephew who doesn't read, but just wasn't working out.
This question's up in the balcony, towards the center, a little bit to your left.
Hi, I really appreciated Americanah, and I'm a bit of an ideological reader, perhaps, so I really appreciated kind of the blows struck against white supremacy. That was cool to read and explore those stories and see kind of the way that was functioning. I was wondering if you could speak to the ways that, as you've gained in fame and prestige, it's been awesome to kind of watch your star rise and be up there. The way that you see your work as being used politically and think about it politically, because I see so much as a kind of political aesthetic rather than kind of ascribing names to things, and I thought that was really cool. And the way that you see your work being used and would like it to be used politically, and whether there's a relationship between that across borders, between the United States and internationally.
Answer that. I mean, here's the thing. I think you write a book, and of course there are ways you want it to be read, but you really lose control when it's out. And there are people who've told me things about my own work that just makes me roll my eyes and shake my head because I'm thinking, no. But the thing is, you lose control, and I think there's a sense in which you just sort of have to let go. There are people who. And I think Americanah, clearly, of course, it would be dishonest of me to say that I don't realize that Americanah, in addition to being a love story and social commentary, is also, even the writing of Americanah, I think, was a political act, and I realize that. But I also hope that while politically I identify as a left-leaning person, but there are things, I mean, I also make fun of a number of sort of, standard liberal things that happen in this country that I find amusing. And so I like to think that while the book has a larger worldview that has something to say, that my hope is that there are things in it that it sort of pokes holes at everything, I like to think. And so yeah, I mean, if people use it politically, that's the thing. You can't control how your book will be read, but what's wonderful is that there are people who clearly are reading it the way that I hope that they would read it, and that there are many white people who have learned a lot about natural black hair. And that was
Yes.
This has worked out very well. And so, if that's really...
We've run out of time. So there's so much more to talk about. We can stay for a long time, and I think everybody here is thrilled that it came out all this way to San Francisco.